Okay. Hello, everyone. I wanted to speak about the human archetypes. Patience for the dehumanized. I think after this talk, I'll probably, upload a few talks that are on my phone and then, throw in the towel for now. So what I want to say is something perhaps that should be typed. Okay. All right. So let's see what this 1 in 8 billion human beings can say tonight. I guess firstly, we'll start with the title. For the dehumanized. And in the subtitle, I've written a species that loved more than itself. To be honest, both can be used as the titles of this episode. A species that loved more than itself. So, I guess some questions can arise here. What is, as a human, what is an archetype? What is the dehumanized? Okay. So, in order to understand the sentence, we got to understand what image it creates. So what I'm doing here, dear viewers, what I've been doing pretty much, I think it's like, maybe like a majority. It's like half my life what I've been doing is really that I look at a sentence, any sentence, whether somebody tells me or something I read or whatnot, and that sentence has to turn into an image, because if I don't see the image within the sentence, I can't remember it. I don't want to say I can't remember it, but it's easier to remember. I noticed something incredible, that how is it that, when it comes to reading books and remembering what's in them, there's a difficulty, but when it comes to remembering a show, like a TV show, there is no difficulty. I found this very fascinating. You know why? Because when I was in school, everybody knew exactly what was going on the TV shows, but nobody knew what the teacher was going to teach or say. And even if you knew, you wouldn't say anything, because, you weren't like scum, Anyways, what I'm saying is, the human archetype's patience for the dehumanized is simply a suggestion that we human beings will reach a point in history where if we don't have patience for that which is not human, we are the weakest species and we are an embarrassment to the cosmos and the whole universal expanse. And dear viewers, I think I gotta say this, it's I'm a very lonely person, write something in the comment section. Yeah. In the chat section, fill up the chat section with jolliness. Oh man. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is we're human beings today. Right now, human beings are trying to get comfortable with other human beings. We're at such a toddler level, like the species, it's embarrassing. Right? Like imagine if I've said this in other talks, if the aliens land down, I'm going to go hide. And imagine they're peaceful aliens. And somebody's like, Mr. Within, you don't have to hide. And I'm like, I wasn't hiding because they were evil or good. I'm hiding because I'm too embarrassed. If an extraterrestrial lands down on Earth, it's embarrassing. It's not scary. Do you know what I'm saying? Like an alien lands on Earth, right? I'll be like, oh man, this alien probably thinks we're all idiots. And you know why? Because the alien's gonna be like, yo, you human beings, you want disclosure? You want aliens to land on Earth? You fools can't even deal with yourselves. Do you see what I'm saying? Somebody in the chat section says, I'm speaking to you through telepathy. Guys, I'm very dense. You gotta type. But anyways, where I'm going with this, right? I'm pretty much saying there's gonna come a time where human beings, our minds, required to be comfortable with that which is not human. Now, if an extraterrestrial lands on Earth, and human beings can look at this extraterrestrial like it's too much for us to look at it, we would have to give AI an ability to find all the shapes of this extraterrestrial that replicate other shapes that the human mind has seen before. That means AI can help reduce like the fear or shock factor of human beings when they see disclosure. Let's say extraterrestrial disclosure. Well, what I'm trying to say is like, think about it, dear human beings, think about it. First of all, the world is too big. Another idea we have is that there's so many galaxies and planets and star systems that it's like there's going to be like one smart kid in the classroom. There's going to be one galaxy or maybe even civilizations that are ahead of us, right? And in some sense, they have made it to the interstellar circle. But we have not. And this might sound bizarre, right? There's this saying, for me, I remember when I was young, religious books kind of felt like they were, they were as mysterious as like aliens or whatnot, right? Thinking as if it was an angel or an alien. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a similarity there in regards to how unknown they are, right? What I'm trying to tell human beings is that there's going to come a time we're going to get bored of being human. It's not now. It's probably, I'd give it 3,600 years from now. Sorry, 3,600 years now, we would get bored of being an entity. Let's give it like 600, let's give it like 1,000 years, okay? I would say in 1,000 years, some human beings are gonna be like, yo, am I just an animal? Is this it? You know? So anyways, our species is having problems dealing with itself, which means imagine like a soccer team, okay? Like imagine Barcelona or Real Madrid, okay? These two soccer teams, and imagine Real Madrid has gone to Barcelona, right? Has gone to their court or something, right? Or imagine Barcelona has come to Real Madrid and suddenly all the Barcelona players are on the field ready, and suddenly, like mid-game, imagine, actually not at the beginning, imagine mid-game, suddenly the Real Madrid players start fighting among themselves. They start fighting among themselves, okay? To such a degree where it's like, you know, it's turned into Mortal Kombat or something. And all the people in the team that is not fighting is like, yo, this team is an embarrassment. This team can't even work together. How did they come to our stadium? How did they come into this league? Do you understand? Because we human beings cannot love each other, cannot work together, we are in the little leagues. We're not in the big leagues that are up there in our skies. You understand? So what I'm trying to tell people is that when we go to ancient times, they were way more comfortable with dehumanized archetypes, right? But when you look at modern times, anything that isn't human, we're like, ew, get it away from me, you know? It's like, oh my God, did you suggest the possibility of another reality beyond what we can see in this one? And somebody's like, oh my God, it's not human, ew. But in reality, humanity is an acceptance. There's no such thing as a human being, believe it or not. There is a human appearance, but the being is not just human. So in the chat section, somebody's talking about the Hebrew logos comes to life through sigil and sound and makes creation, supposedly. You know, the Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical Kabbalah, is something that actually, you know, it's strange. I know about it to some degree, little bit, but it's not something I've actually really dived into to comprehend. But I have an interview channel, guys. I'm probably going to go interview everybody from all these, you know, philosophical, you know, spiritual, religious traditions. Anyways, where am I going with this? A species that loved more than itself. So it takes us to a brainstorming point. So I'm going to start with the second part. A species that loved more than itself. So first of all, what is a species? Or actually, whatever, I'll start from the beginning. The human archetype's patience for the dehumanized. So what is human? I mean, if this was a classroom, I'd ask the students, yo, what do you think is human? Yo, what about you, kiddo? What do you think is human? You know? Can you imagine? And then if I was a university professor, I think the students would be like, yo, our professor doesn't even know what a human is. He's asking the kids, you know? What is a human? I will not claim myself as a person who will intellectual act, like knows everything. There's so many things I don't know. Actually finding the things I don't know provides me comfort. But I have observed the human experience for 31 years. That means if somebody's like, yo, what's your resume? I'd be like, I'm existing as a human being for 31 years. There you go. That's some sort of resume right there. Okay, so in these 31-year laps around the sun, what have I noticed about this world? And what have I noticed about what we call human? Okay, when I was younger, so many ideas of the world were not questionable, as if I did not even care to question them. When you're young, you're just trying to get a sense of how the game works and to fit in it and get some sort of result. That's what you want when you're young. When you're young, you want to just win, you don't want to lose. But the thing about 8 billion human beings is that eventually children start winning and losing. In life, first of all, you win and lose, but the winning and losing can change in accordance to your desire, right? That means if you desire something, think of it this way. You are an intelligence that appears out of nowhere, takes in as much information as it can, creates a version of what it thinks is going on, and then acts as that until it can recalibrate it, recoordinate. So what is a human? A human being is an object okay, here. This is what I think the human is. An unknown witnessing force notices that through its objective existence, it can create a separate subjective experience of the contents in the moment. So what does this mean? What I'm pretty much saying, guys, it's like this. I'm saying that there's an objective existence. Check this for yourself. You're gonna find an objective existence, your physical body in a physical world. Then how do you know you objectively exist? Is because we are saying that there is an experiencer. They call this consciousness. Okay, so there is an experiencer, an objective existence is being monitored and modified through subjective experience. Now the question that can never be asked, but it must be, is the question of who is experiencing consciousness, to name it. Do you understand? There's something unknown going on in how we are seeing the moment. Sometimes it's not even enlightenment. It has nothing to do with even language or a story of truth or, oh my God, this guy's he washed his sins away. It's not something like that. Sometimes it's a recognition of how your attention is holding the moment, and if you deep down feel that it's human or not. That means this might sound bizarre, right? I was thinking like there's a pattern that we see, okay, that a lot of people who go towards spirituality are people who have had some sort of suffering, some sort of, like intensity of suffering early on, okay? That means nobody who's satisfied with the physical realm, okay, in some sense can just be like, yo, is there more? Like, you have no reason. You wonder about the mysteries of the mind and beyond, and the soul and beyond, because the body is not enough. Do you understand? Like right now, why am I giving this talk? Because existing like a freaking statue is not enough. right? And something has to move before my eyes close, because to me, there was a time where I'm like, okay, I can choose. I'm gonna have one lifetime that, let's say, is either in a span of 100 years, or I can choose to have as many lifetimes, based on as many days I wake up, or as many moments I reset my attention. There has been times I reset my attention, and it's kind of strange. I don't want to say it's like a computer I shut down and it, like, how like PC computers, it says restarting. It's not like that. It's moments where suddenly my ego becomes valueless to me. You don't understand. Like, some people, because they have unconscious, subconscious desires and doing things, they have initiated cycles for themselves, for their own. They have entered karmic cycles that there are. I don't know how to say it to you, but it's as if like you can only be an individual if you ignore change. That's it. If I just say, yo, everything stopped changing and I'm a great person, as if like that one little definition in that one instant moment of time was like, oh my God. There's this thing called Zeno's paradox, right? And evidently it's this idea that like when an arrow, like let's say somebody shoots an arrow, right? Like a bow and arrow. And if you pause the arrow in mid-air, the arrow is not moving, right? It's just hovering in air still, right? But when the arrow is being shot, it's moving. And it's this paradox of something being still but also moving at the same time. Okay? Now, I think the same thing can be applied in a different way. Guys, I don't know how many people are just trying to be a good or some sort of archetype in the moment, and how many people can let the moment be and watch what that is. You see, it's very weird being a creature. And we haven't realized this due to the necessity of our attention being occupied with existential survival. Do you understand? The creature stepped out of a cave. Think of, like, for example, Plato's allegory of the cave. Those people have no clue that there's something else outside of that cave. And think about us thinking that we are existential physical creatures as a cave of the mind. The mind has not stepped out of the cave of an individual objective identity. But we don't realize the only reason we're individual and objective is because we have separated ourselves. And when you wonder what is separating my feet from this world, it is your mind. If there was no mind, you would just be the periodic table hasn't gone anywhere. In the void. Let me tell you what knowledge is, what the educational should be, and it isn't. It should be advanced, incredibly advanced research stations, and they're going to be recontextualized through the future. Right now, the educational system is like, hey noobs, come and play this game. Give me like a giant chunk of your life savings. So I repeat the past to you, and then if you don't get a good grade of repeating the past, who nobody cares about anymore because the future has arrived. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying that the past is wrong. I'm saying the educational system does not care for the future of itself. And this is why the students are screwed if the educational system doesn't care for itself. Now, this doesn't mean educational system. See, this is the hilarious thing. Anything you look at from the past, oh my God, what a champion, what greatness, oh my God, such progress, advancement. Of course, If I compare it to the caveman, I'm like in like 3,000 years in the future of 2023 even, compared to how far advanced I am to the past. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying that the educational system is providing a service which ends up becoming a disservice of the student to itself, which feels stupid afterwards. Do you know, people go to the educational system to get smarter, but then imagine afterwards, imagine if the educational system was free, it would be a game changer. Do you know? In some countries it is. But because educational system here in Canada isn't free, the person actually feels stupid when they leave the place, not smarter, because they have a bigger obstacle. Do you understand? This doesn't mean you can't be street smart and go get what you need from an institution and just pilot your way beyond the institution. Do you understand? Like some people, like this was my how can I tell you? I think the reason a majority of students all around the world, for me, I'm someone, I went back and I hit a home run. But I can tell you this, that the biggest downfall of students in universities is because they freaking think they're a student in a university. You have to be in your head what you already want to be before you go enter that room and that building. Do you see? And when you understand archetypes, it changes your life. Like, this is why Carl Jung was like, yo, I gotta tell people about this, So anyways, let's go back to this. What is a human? Right? I gave my definition: an objective existence, simultaneously noticing it's subjectively experiencing the objective existence, and then noticing that before it actually expresses itself as a subject, it can choose. So believe it or not, before I say a single word, I am literally no one. And the moment the words come out, it's as if like the momentum is being built, and then it's just the rhythm speaks for itself. We are creatures of rhythm, by the way. This is a lost art. Right nowadays, people are like, yo man, why isn't my robotic discipline paying off? Because this world moves in waves. Have you noticed? For me, let me tell you this, right? I'm someone who, I would say, compared to a lot of people around me, I feel I get bored from things that others don't get bored from. Do you know? And when somebody gets bored, what happens? They're looking for another world. You're looking for something else. It's actually fascinating. Like, if we were to take a survey of 8 billion human beings and their each lifetime and what their attention went on. Imagine some in a compassionate, benevolent, honest, kind surveillance state. Even though this is kind of like imagining a utopia right now, but imagine we suddenly saw, okay, what are human beings doing? Like a movie, guys. Imagine aerial view. We're looking from the sky, like a drone camera in the sky. And imagine we're looking at 8 billion human beings, just aerial view. What do? They get up, and just imagine somehow we could see. Probably, I think 80% of the human experience, that means each human being is actually obsessed with self. If you look at it, we're all narcissists when it comes to survival. Now, narcissism is kind of different, because narcissism is like solipsism, is like a bold solipsist. Okay, like if a solipsist becomes bold, they become a narcissist. And what is the difference between a narcissist? Why do people look at a narcissist and they're like, you could look at this weak soul? Why do people say that? Like, why do people look down on a narcissist? Because the narcissist is declaring that I don't have an ability to step out of my world, so everybody step into mine. Do you understand? Rather than not being like, there's times where I get bored of my own opinions, my own beliefs. Do you understand? Like, my experiences are constantly remodeling the egoic structure that arises the moment I choose to be an individual entity, but the moment I move as an individual entity. You see, it's kind of very difficult for me, because, I look at the New Age community, I look at all the fiction, like when I look at this world, believe it or not, like as a writer, for me, I'm like, yo, what's non-fiction, what's fiction? Right? And as Seneca said, this Greek philosopher, this guy was so like ahead of his time. He's like, most people suffer in imagination and thought rather than in reality. That means most people are suffering from abstract events that only exist in their perception and they don't realize it. When somebody thinks they're having a bad day, in that same, let's say at your job, that somebody else is having a great day. The day somebody's getting fired, somebody's getting a raise. The day somebody's being born, somebody's dying. And this is the beautiful thing, where it's like a whack-a-mole of consciousness. Consciousness, like a whack-a-mole, like puts its head out, and then suddenly the forces of nature and entropy and whatnot, in some sense, are like, go back down. Do you understand? So, to be honest, if you're a human being that is wearing clothing right now, I think you fit the context of what I'm talking about. If you're a nudist, okay, if you're a nudist hearing my talk right now, there's a different approach, I guess. But I would say that what I'm trying to say is that just like we put on clothing, just like we comb our hair, we are also dressing our moment of energetic being through the subjective layout of a human archetype. That means you might think you're being a person and everybody sees you, but actually nobody ever sees how you see yourself. Because if they did, they would be you. Or we've been ushered into the era of collective mindhood. So really, what I'm trying to tell the viewers is that I got a spiritual experience that I don't even know if I can call spiritual, but it was like the most profound thing, that my whole life I was like this noun, this temporary noun that was scared. That's it. I was a scared temporary noun in the void, And then at some point, click, I suddenly saw, oh my God, I am not a known temporary noun. I am an unknown eternal verb, game changer. The world was moving before it was still. The secrets of the universe were never a secret. They're right here. Do you know? Imagine there was this mighty being that manifested in a world and the world was empty, right? Imagine in the future, I'm probably going to make a science fiction story out of this, but imagine in the future, right, a mighty human being was born, and this human being had the universal cosmic memory. That means this human being remembered not their lifetimes, adorable, remembered the birth of the universe. Prior to that even, which you're not even a physical entity. You're as if it's like eternal space, was looking for a mirror. So do you understand what that meant? That means my whole life I was like, yo, I need to just find a workable strategy and then just be grateful for the workable strategy. It was the freaking copy paste poison. I'm telling you, if you're someone in a classroom and there are people copy pasting each other's answers from exams, just say that's a poisonous act. Do you understand? Because this world is at some point going to tell you, why do you think I brought you here? Do you think I brought you in this world with your own unique DNA, circumstances, and journey in this life so you can be somebody else? The world laughs at all those people who think they are incomplete before looking, in some sense, poetically within. Do you know that you can activate as a being differently? And if I really want to blow people's minds, in regards to esotericism and mystical dimension, I will tell you that you are not the same soul as you were born. And that just like cells, just like blood cells, you see small cells suddenly join and make a bigger cells, the cells make a tissue. I am telling you, the soul is made up of smaller souls. We don't see it because we identify with the dimension. Well, you know what that means? It's like a cube being like, yo, I'm a cube, not realizing this. It's like six squares are living through it. Do you understand? Everything in this world is showing us that worlds are layered upon worlds, or even it's like there's even double-edged worlds. It's like one day, I look at a flower, the other day I'm looking at atomic particles, lattice structures and whatnot. Do you understand what has been going on? What the caveman did was it discovered something new. And it took a while for it to adjust. Like, how many freaking cavemen were like holding fire in their hand until one caveman was like, oh, oh, oh. Like it was like burning its hand or something. Do you know? This world, has hidden worlds inside. And consciousness is sovereignty. Do you understand? That means you might think this is bizarre, right? People might be like, Mr. Within, okay, this is too spiritual, right? But I'll tell you an idea. When I told you the soul is made of different souls, right? The soul ultimately comes across as an attention where reality moves in. Now, here's the bizarre thing. Friedrich Nietzsche came and said, if a tree falls in a forest, if there was no one there to hear the tree fall, did the tree fall? That means we need consciousness a priori before a posteriori kind of fucking, vibe, Jumping from, the educational, jumping from the universities into the streets and then back into the universities and the streets. If somebody's like, yo, Mr. Within, where are you giving your talks? I'll be like, evidently at the revolving door of a university campus. The front gate revolving door, I'm just... What I'm trying to say is, if there needs to be consciousness for us to know there is reality, or there needs to be an attention in order for reality to know that it's moving, if there is something moving without human attention, it could suggest that there is attention there but not human. So what I'm trying to say is that there could be a huge possibility that souls are not embodying substances in the world. They are embodying moments of the space-time continuum. You are being the space where the elements of the periodic table are moving in. Do you understand? So what I'm saying is that explains consciousness's interaction, not being something that emerges out of an objective biological entity, but being something that has a relationship of space and what's in it. Do you understand? Consciousness is hilariously it's kind of like consciousness is like the eye of the needle, where the string has gone in and now the eye of the needle moves and is sewing everything together. Like, that's how bizarre reality is, right? Like, there's a point where I was like, yo, who has time to be good? Who has time to be evil? There is so many unknown variables in reality that we must render all human beings as explorers. Do you understand? That means the educational system, for me, it's going to be the most advanced exhibitions of, just like Attack on Titan, do you know, where there was like the survey scouts? It would be like that, but it would be in regards to the most fascinating conversations, because the caveman had sticks and stones to make fire, and humanity has his mind and communication to make new flames. But these are not flames of chaos. Do you understand? Because chaos was fire. Do you understand? This world did not give a chance for anything to notice anything. And after a very long time, rare opportunity. Do you understand? You know, from an evolutionary, secular perspective, you know, I was like, consciousness, what are you doing? World, what are you doing? You know, I was like, world, you're telling me 4.5 billion years this creature, this species evolved just to just to notice its suffering, just to notice it's gonna die. And I was like, what a weird world. You're born here for a little while, like 100 years, and then in that 100 years you see a magnificent, endless, infinite, majestic world, and then you leave. I'm like, yo, God, this is kind of weird. You're showing us a miracle and then saying you are not that miracle. Existence is a miracle if you're religious. What else? How else would he define it? How else would he define, you know, attention unveiling the void into form? The human archetype means that every human being, you might think you're just a human being just because you have a biological human body. But I will tell you, human being is an art form. To be human is an art form. It's like craftsmanship. It's like swordsmanship. Okay, if like you know, there was a time where I was thinking, imagine, you know, like I was like in some time machine bus, and then somebody pushed me out of that time machine bus, and I fell, like, based on the knowledge I have now, I fell like back in the day, you know. If I fell in medieval times, it's as if you pick up a sword and you just go train. You know, and there's even non-physical training, right? This is very different. I mean, I do it all the time. Not all the time, but there's times I do it consciously. And what this non-physical training is actually, I attained it through the insights of Sun Tzu. So Sun Tzu, this next level general in the art of war, shares a very valuable, very profound insight about victory. And I'm a person who, I could say my childhood, contextually, it was blessed and victorious, but just I felt I wasn't even on the playing field to even consider victory when I was young. I felt absent from my own life when I was young, and I didn't understand it, so I ended up being this just quiet kid watching life ridiculously. And then at some point I suddenly realized that the limitations that were limiting me were just the first prototype, what the way the best my mind could do in the past. Dear viewers, it is our task as beings. I am talking to, like, let's say you might be someone on this planet, and let's say, I don't know, you identify with something dehumanized. Like, you know, somebody could ask me, like, yo, who are you? And the person's like, I am descended from the spirit of the fox. You know, there's something called foxkin, by the way. It's those people who believe like they were a fox in their past life or something, so they can identify as a fox now. You know, I mean, society's kind of being, you know, the more uneducated society becomes, the more it glorifies and worships the demi-human nature. So it demi-humanizes. So what demi-human means, I mean, this is a cool thing. I mean, I think I feel like maybe people already know, but in case, you know, millions of people may listen to this, this is the way of kind of contrasting. So we have animals, okay? Or let's say this way, most people know that there is a human, and then you go read a bit of Vedanta and Upanishad and just Vedic thought, right? You introduce yourself to Vedic thought and you see that there is in some sense demigod. And then there is the absolute God, right? This is something where the monotheists don't realize that polytheists are actually monotheizing themselves because everything is God's dream, you know? Like right now, modern India, like I remember I went there and I was like, there was this, it was so hilarious. You know what I'm saying? I went to India as a tourist trying to learn more about India, ancient Indian culture. And then there was a kid there who was trying to learn more about it. He was trying to be American. Do you know what I'm saying? And it was hilarious because I was coming from Canada, like going towards India, learning about Indian culture. And that guy was like stepping out of the Indian culture, going to that. Do you understand? It's so fascinating. Like there's a giant tourist, like let me tell you, in the future, I think all tourist agencies in the world are gonna get, like they're gonna become smart and unified. They're all gonna become one agency. And this tourist agency is probably gonna work with the government, this global tourist agency. And the idea is going to be, in some sense, finding the right child at the right moment. It's going to be this idea. You don't understand. It's literally like a chef like throwing salt in a pan, right? Like we have no clue. Human beings are just, or somebody throwing sand on a let's say wooden table, right? It's like we're being just scattered around. Or imagine there's a map, right? We have the map of the world, and somebody comes and you know, throws like a handful of sand on this map, and all the sands land in different parts of the map. Okay. And so you might be landed some part of the world, you might be existing in some part of the world, but you might have the talent, desire, and incredible ability to succeed if you had existed in exactly some other part of the world. Do you know what I'm saying? Teleportation will actually be a revolution in competence. You know, it's going to like revolutionize. It's going to, teleportation technology is going to, if somehow that there's a possibility, teleportation technology is going to advance civilization so fast. It's going to be genius. It's literally going to be like people just literally going through portals all day. Do you understand? You know what a portal means? A portal means that one room has become all rooms. And I don't know if people have seen the show Rick and Morty. This is why all the people in that show feared Rick, right? Feared the portal gun technology. You know why? Because you cannot be limited. You can always go somewhere else. Yep. To continue. Alright guys, what can I say? I mean, I opened the notepad. Let me just quickly go through it. Okay, what is a human? A human being is what you see in the mirror, you know. What is an archetype? An archetype is the subjective outline, outline of a character in a story, in a subjective story. And then it says, what is the dehumanized? Okay, so the dehumanized means anything that is not, I guess we start from anything that is not the natural temporary loving human okay, I'll give it a better definition. Okay, anything that is not the human archetype. The traditional human archetype. This is very important. Like right now, what do we see in TikTok and all these places where these guys are fighting over like masculinity, femininity? What does it mean to be a man nowadays? What does it mean being a woman, right? Why are these collisions arising, right? Because human beings are still individually trying to succeed. That's the issue. That means it's as if, the king had a queen. And the king and queen were so smart, because if their love was weak, the king's position would fall, like the kingdom would fall, right? Imagine the day, imagine back in the day a medieval king, and imagine like last night, like the medieval king's queen, the queen like scolded the king, how dare you look at the other princess, And right, and imagine that day the king's like in a bad mood and people are like, oh my God, thousands of people are dying because the queen got angry. Do you see the importance of human relationships? And some people are like, yo, couples counseling, why is it important? I'm like, yo, if we had couples counseling back in the day, you know how many wars, how many kingdoms wouldn't have been, how many people would have still been alive? I mean, it doesn't matter how many people would have been alive, but it would have been like a completely different framework. Reality is weird, it's like the world is drawing an artwork and then you suddenly appear and you're drawing your artwork and you're drawing your artwork over the reality's artwork. But after you're done drawing your artwork, you're like, okay, let's see what the world's going to do with my artwork. Let's see what the value of my energy is or was. Do you see? It's as if I think every human being, like in order to remain human, you have to care, you have to have a reason to be human. And this is why when you stop behaving, when you don't communicate to a person like a human being, right, they dehumanize. Do you understand? And something bizarre I've noticed, those people who are dehumanized, let's say somebody who's dehumanized is somebody who doesn't have an ability. See, like on some level, sure, you could be like, I'm talking about non-biological related mental illness. Okay, I'm not talking about biological related mental illness because that's like the hardware problem, and I'm talking about a software problem. Okay. So what I'm saying is, like, this is something I've noticed is that certain human beings who dehumanize, okay, they actually don't realize subconsciously they want to be human again. Do you know? And I thought spirituality was like, yo, I'm not human, I'm a spirit, I'm gonna go beyond this world. I thought this was spirituality. And I was like, no, the spirituality of 2023 is realizing to be human is our greatest spiritual practice. Do you understand? It's beautiful to be human. It is an honor to be human. It is a blessing to be human. Think of all the other species. Sometimes I think like, a Vedic thought, like yogic thought is scary. You know why? Because it's like it has this idea that if you do something wrong, like let's say a human being bites another human being, right? And then some situation happens, it's like in the next lifetime, that human being is going to be a dog. but it's going to be a dog with a human memory. Do you know what I'm saying? And so that's the bizarre thing, that imagine in the future human beings realize, all pet owners realize, that you have not been holding pets. The spirit that is looking through the eyes of that pet may be human, maybe not human. I've seen certain squirrels and rabbits, and I just see their antenna, like I see their brain. I don't see their brain. I mean, I've seen like a squirrel or a rabbit get I don't want to say get possessed, but something suddenly click and the entity behaves completely differently, as if it's in a different entity, as if another player logged into the same character in the video game. So what does this mean? That you bite someone, then you're going to be an animal in your next lifetime, right? So I would say, and guys, by the way, think of it this way. When human beings want to communicate to animals, when you communicate to a pet, or let's say you go and say lovely things, or you sing poetry or something to your pet or something, when you share a human archetype, if they engage it, they suddenly get excited when you communicate to them like a human, right? Not because you've trained them, just from the beginning before them being trained. There's a huge sign that that consciousness has a familiarity. Okay? Now, what I'm trying to say is this is a very bizarre thing, but at the same time, I don't know, I hopefully, like, I don't want to be an old man when this happens, but I hope it happens. Okay? The future generations are going to have so much fun. Because I think in a few years, I'm going to create the School of Athens 2.0 everywhere, you know, and it's going to be like this Colosseum where the greatest conversations on the planet are being had. You know, I literally feel like I'm that person born on this planet to create that great Colosseum of conversations. You know, the Colosseum of conversations. There you go. And what was the point? What am I saying? It's like I don't want to be an old man for, but it's something the future generations are going to enjoy. What it is that there's going to be, first of all, right now, people are like, yo, philosophy, man, you want to be a philosopher? Yo, I don't care about philosophy. You know, it's like I'm late, bro. I'm too busy with this system to want to care about other views of it, you know. And to me, it's fascinating because some people care about the history, which is the physical, which is the history is like what happened to the bodies of human beings. But philosophy is what happened behind their eyes, not what happened in front of their eyes. History is what's happened in front of our eyes. The traditional human archetype is this. Right? We are right now so blessed we don't understand it because we have a purity level that we are taking for granted. Even the most evil people right now alive on the planet, you're still a biological organism. There is a different type of evil that maybe in the future generations, hopefully we're smart enough to bypass it, but the future generations, it's dehumanized evil. And dehumanized evil is another way of saying the moment evil is mindless, that's the domain of beasts. Do you know what a beast is? A beast is a non-negotiable entity that you have to deal with. Do you understand? And you know, I remember I saw the 300 movie, and that scene where the kid is like jumping backwards and the wolf is jumping to kill the kid and the wolf just falls on the spear. Not only there was like a genius geometry and physics to that scene, like some physicists should like definitely like review that scene. It's like somebody tell Neil deGrasse Tyson to review that scene from the movie 300. Do you know? But anyways, there was a scene where I was like, what was giving that kid mental toughness, right? What is like that level of mental toughness where you could go kill a wolf with a spear while like falling backwards, you know? And I was like, yo, I figured it out. This kid didn't give a shit about the wolf. This kid didn't give a shit about his skill level. He gave a shit about where he was going. And that gave him the strength to surpass all the inferior obstacles. Do you understand? He wanted to become something that was so beyond that challenge that challenge wasn't a challenge. He was thinking about what he was going to do next. You know, sometimes throughout the day when I catch up to the day, I call it, right? Then I have a possibility to begin thinking ahead. Do you know? But I don't think too ahead, because let me tell you something. The brain is like, it's like something that needs to be occupied with itself. Okay? Just, it needs to be occupied. Like, the purpose of life is activity. We don't know what kind of activity, but like, it's definitely some activity. It's activity, right? Because we're not in a photograph, we're in a film where we come across as unknown actors in an existential elemental play. Do you know what I'm saying? It's too weird. You know, we call it home, we think it's normal. Like, I've seen like the TTC buses like pass 100 times. Everything feels like, oh man, this is my home, this is my country, this is my planet. But where are we? Do you see? That philosophical depth of that question breaks all boundaries. You know, guys, something I heard about Alan Watts. Something, guys, I heard about Alan Watts that really upset me, because his talks were incredibly essential to my own realizations in life. Alan Watts, you know, he had seems like, you know, there was a sort of tragic ending, and I don't know why, but I wish the self I am now was somehow alive back then and could go talk to him. But it would have been impossible. Technically, it's an impossibility. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that we're living as biological human beings. This is what we need to be grateful for. It's honestly really cool that we are organized. You know, I mean, I understand teenagers want to break rules, you know, break laws, and they think like rebellion is cool. Like, rebellion is cool, but as a backup system, not as just something like you sprinkle everywhere, you know? Yeah. It's like, stop sprinkling, you know, rebellion in our political system. Dear human beings, you might be someone secular right now. You know, let's say you're an atheist hearing me. Even if you're an atheist, you see, there's this ancient idea that what is healthy and strengthens the mind is that every being throughout the day keeps one variable absolute. For example, religious people, when they pray, they keep their faith in the divine will absolute, and then they go about their day. They're like, all right, I did what was asked of me, and I'm going about my day. Like, that's, for example, how religious people go about it, right? They're in a connection with a living world, so that living world is watching over them, protecting them, giving them, if they want something and they don't get it, like, the religious person doesn't go like, God, why not? The religious person goes, God has a different plan. Maybe God's plan is better than my plan. Do you see? Like, that's the religious mind. But as a secular person, right, you have a different approach, because the religious mentality is like those people who wanted to take, like, you know, the elevator. And to be secular is like those who want to climb the mountain alone. So those who take the helicopter up the mountain, that's kind of like the religious mode. But when you're secular, you're in some sense putting the burden of meaning on yourself. When religion says, yo, just give me your ego and put the burden on God, why are you suffering? Let God handle it. Do you see? And there's a merit, there's something about that view where when I was younger it was a bit hollow, but then suddenly, like, I understood something about it. You know, in the future, I'm probably gonna, go try to interview a theologian. If somebody says so, Mr. Within, what are you saying then? Are you saying that we shouldn't try to be, religious or spiritual? We shouldn't be materialist, immaterialist, or otherworldly or whatnot? Then what should we be? And I would say, it's not that I'm saying you shouldn't be those things, but I'm saying that we need to first, as they say, once you understand the simple levels, the simple structure of something, you can understand how it became complex. And before we are ready to go, yo, aliens come and talk to us, yo, angels, demons come and talk to us, yo, other logos come and talk, spirit of the planet come and talk to us. Before all of that, we have to learn to be human. Do you understand? And I was like, oh my God, I want to build an advanced civilization, but the Logos is telling me we have to be human first. And everybody wants to be something else. And I was like, okay, so if everybody wants to be something else, what's the median ground? The advanced human being. That means I'm saying that it's like the human archetype is the object of meditation for the whole universe. You know, what this world needs is, I would say, honesty. But what is honesty? Honesty is appreciating the original. What is the original? The original is the effortless. How can someone do anything to find the effortless? Bingo, that's the clue. The clue is that when it comes to comprehending the nature of your being, it's instantaneous. But when it comes to nature of comprehending yourself as an idea, it is scattered in time. So this is the hilarious thing, that we say we call ourselves human beings, right? The human being, the being part is instantaneous and timeless. The human part is scattered in time. Because I think to myself, yo, if I was just my body, if I was just my thoughts, then my body and thoughts shouldn't change, but they're changing. So the body's just changing slow, we don't realize it. Do you understand? It's like our minds are moving faster than our bodies, so we think that we are our bodies. But no, the mind is just moving faster. Anyways, guys, I should probably end this off. I've written here, a species that loved more than itself. What is a species? A species is the greatest self-awareness what is a species? A collective opportunity towards an eternal, unconditional victory. That means, honestly, guys, when I think about it, like, what is victory for a creature in a world, for a species? And it's just to demonstrate. That means what is a species? The greatest performance of a planet, which is simultaneously the greatest performance of all human beings. That means in the middle of like all the world's problems, Mr. Within is like, yo, let's all be performers and perform in a way that the audience gets astonished. And the audience is not just humanity. It is everything. Do you understand? When I realize I cannot hide anything from the consciousness of the world, then you laugh at who you have been. You laugh at all the times you've thought you've intellectually, like, you know, your ego's victories are like, you know, defeats for that are meaningless, for that which is not a subject. What is love? Love is so important because love is the necessary ingredient, or I should say something else, the necessary tool, the necessary, love is the necessary ability to observe man, it's right there. I'm just looking for the words, guys. What the necessary ability to integrate all performances. There we go. Beautiful. So what am I saying here? What am I calling beautiful? I'm saying that, think of it this way, bunch of animals, wild animals. It's like, look at these animals. And it's like, yo, that's our history. So what I'm saying is, there's a rock, creatures appear on it, okay? Bunch of creatures appear on it. These creatures are vicious, wild, they're unconsciously moving. Suddenly they consciously move, they organize. They consciously move and then they notice each other. And love, the earliest form of love, was just the ability to not kill or not attack viciously like a savage animal the other entity you saw beside. We don't understand how long it took for our species to get comfortable with the tribal position. Do you know? Right now we take it so for granted how easily we walk into a Starbucks and order coffee. Right? Back in the day, in medieval times, everybody had to, if you were a man, you had to have a sword because you didn't know who was insane. You didn't know who had an inferior mind, who couldn't see much. Do you know, who would get angry quickly? You understand? Like, there was a savageness, there was a fear of life and death all the time back in the day. Now we're just so casually trying to make the world our living room. And you know what's genius? I think this is necessary. I think it's necessary for the species to become a little incompetent, so then it decides a new type of competence in accordance to what kind of being it wants to be. That means the question of who you want to be in the future is not like, yo, hey kiddo, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's not that. It's about, what are you doing as a being in a world? That's how far we're planning. What are you doing as attention in a moment? You know, I'm giving a podcast. What are you doing? You're probably listening to my podcast. You know, the universe answers its own secrets, you know. Anyways, so how can a species love more than itself if it doesn't fear itself? Do you understand? It has to be so second nature for us to be kind, benevolent, and to want the victory of everybody. If you're a secular person, just go and be like, just meditate on the greatness of humanity. Why do you think I'm saying advanced civilization, advanced civilization? It is the greatest idea. It is the idea all ideological systems will be like, yo, Mr. Within has a point. What do we do in the void? I understand the act of, you see, the cool thing about spirituality is that you actually are not a physical being. Because you're not a physical being, you cannot die. Because you cannot die, life is meaningless. Because life is meaningless, you are the creator of the meaning. Because you are the creator of meaning, you're eternally alone. And then the choice is left. That means it's as if what was the genius of eternal loneliness and eternal aloneness? What was the genius of an eternal aloneness? The genius of an eternal aloneness was that it understood it cannot create, it cannot have a partner. God cannot have a partner. But its creation can. God is giving man what it wanted. Just like every father archetype. Do you understand? It's as if there's something in you that you're like, I'm just a temporary creature. The value of me is what I give to the world. 700 years ago, the poet Rumi, wrote, before death takes away all that is given, give away all there is to give. That means your life is something that if you're smart, it's not just the movie you only saw. It's something you give to the world. Because that's really what it's like. What you are not, you can give. Okay? It's as if I thought if I identified with my knowledge, I'd be like, I don't want to say anything to anybody, I don't want to spill the beans, I just think everybody is swine and hide the pearls, right? But I was like, we don't have time. It's like the advanced civilization I'm envisioning in my inner realms. We don't have time to, in some sense, not have people be efficient. We don't have time for inefficiency. Whoever you are, rekindle the ancient and also futurist honor of the eternal effort of human being. Our body, temporary, but our effort, eternal. There was a time where I was like, do I love humanity? Am I giving all of these talks because of my love, my compassion, for humanity? Am I like a saint and I don't know it? I thought that, and I suddenly, it's been a week where I've been freed, from this heavy backpack I was carrying since my childhood, and I was like, no. I am actually wanting the advanced civilization for a very selfish reason. Do you know? And if I say it, people might be shocked, but as if I have to say it in case, it's for it to exist in cyberspace. When I was young, very young, I think when I was 11, I remember my mother came to me and my brother, just random moment, and she looked at both of us and she told us, be a good person. She just said it, and in our young minds was something like, because my mother's voice was serious, it was something she was saying, it was like something she was giving us. Me and my brother took those words very deeply. And then the thing was, but when I grew up, right, that subconscious emotion, that deep feeling, as if my mother said, be a good person in the world. All right. But then what I realized, what my mother had not noticed, and maybe she had, but there was nothing to say. What I noticed was that how can I be a good person when the world is not good? And it's as if my heart broke, because the only way I could keep my promise to my mother was that I had to make the world a good place. Do you understand? We live for the truths we've stepped out of. We've journeyed out of. We live through an ancient lineage of human beings who they were like, pass it on to the next, pass it on to the next, and lifetimes, the eyes opened again, met the unknown world, lived a life, and died many times in the process. But the eyes went on, as if some part of your consciousness could never be touched, as if the original earth has not been forgotten, as if there will come a time where, I'm telling all spiritual people, all people who are just entertaining the dehumanized. You know, I'm a sci-fi writer. I entertain it too. I entertain the far future dehumanization. Like, I think about it a lot, right? But the thing about now, right now in history, it's as if you're trying to escape your humanism because there was suffering. And then once you go beyond that suffering, you will see there is no suffering, and that suffering is the only thing left to deal with, and you return to your human eyes. But this time they were not wrong from the beginning. Do you understand? You have to welcome your own soul. You know, esoteric traditions, they talked about initiation. There is an initiation beyond the domains of ideology, beyond what stories have promised, beyond the whispers of the invisible. There is the glowing presence of the future self. Of the world. So what I mean is, just like the human being envisions ahead through the faculty of the brain that leads to the mind. So let's say through the faculty of the mind. Like, you know, most people are like, yo, what is the mind? The mind is where the future exists. The mind is the future. Or is the future until the future arrives. Dear humanity, whoever you are, go in front of a mirror, any mirror you see, and in the way your heart knows, salute the humanness. Because right now we have reached that point in history where an incredible movement has to begin. But what is this movement? The movement of the restoration of the decent biological human being. For once we accept our humanity, the stars will come greet us. But when we fear our humanity, when we are scared of our humanity, when we don't have care for our humanity, then even if extraterrestrials land, they'll be like, you don't care for yourselves, why should we care for you? You see, this is the savageness of the world. It responds, it gives you what you gave it. It shows you what you showed it. But in this whole time that it's going on, this is the cool thing about religion, which I like, where they say it's a test. So every moment is being watched, and when it's a test, you know what that means? That means you have to be in your greatest state all the time. But how is it possible to be in your greatest state all the time if your greatest state is your most simplest, effortless state? It's there all the time. You see, like, honestly, you know, I went to, you know, like, I understand, like, again, the educational system. But it's as if I didn't know why I was there. Man. You know, sometimes when I look at my own, you know, remember my youth and childhood, I'm like, yo, man, you serious? I have realized is that the human being is incredible, and it's like just think of it as an ancient artifact, or like an ancient or like alien space, like a alien spacecraft debris or something. Like there's like the existence is a technology in motion. The question is, who is the user? To the religious person, the user, which was thought to be the idea of self, is actually the divine. Just like Swami Krishnananda says, religion is God remembering himself. And that's another way of saying that you are God's memories in the void. There is a truth here that once you understand that there's it's very strange. Do you know, it's like imagine you go somewhere, you go into this basketball court, and suddenly you feel like slam dunking, and you're like, why? It's like, I never slam dunk. Why do I suddenly feel like slam dunking? And imagine you realize right before you were there was like, a slam dunk competition or something. There's a gift that you can open at any time in this world, and this gift, it's like, it doesn't have to be a special event. It's pretty much how being conscious in a world is enough to realize what being conscious in a world is. You just accept that in your simplest state, you're actually, like, I think everybody will find it for themselves. It's like, what desire can simplicity have? Desire is the luxury of a complex entity. And people are like, yo, why is it that I'm simpler, my desires for complexity aren't fulfilled? It's because this is something I learned from the, Jewish tradition. Pretty much I saw this rabbi on YouTube speak about it, and he was talking about money, and he was pretty much saying it's based on the vessel you create. And the vessel you create suggests the space you have created for a miracle of God to happen. For example, a person who becomes a family man, when two human beings marry each other, right? Human beings just see the physical component, and then they divorce, right? Because human beings don't understand what wedding vows mean, because we have lost sense of our inner nature. Because what a wedding vows mean is that you are actually declaring to the universal sector that you are watching over another being, like yourself, like how you watch over yourself. So my grandpa said something very interesting. He was trying to, motivate me to get married, and he was like, Amin, when you get married, you don't have just 2 eyes, you have 4 eyes. You don't have just 2 ears, you have 4 ears. You don't have just 2 hands, you have 4 hands. I was like, Grandpa, I get it, I understand now. I'm gonna go get married right now. Sorry, I don't understand why I've been waiting so Anyways, guys, jokes aside, what I'm trying to say is you are a member of the human species, and you are tasked with creating a human experiencing and creating a human archetype that is meant for your eyes, and you have the privilege of sharing it with the world. And don't fear this world, because this world is why we're here. I was shy so many years of my youth, and then I was like, yo, that was so ridiculous. I was born into the world to see the world, to engage it, to be me. Do you understand? That means that there's something beautiful that happens that in this world. This is something nobody says to you, but it's, maybe people, of course, people maybe, there's 8 billion people have said probably to you, but what it is that you can find yourself. Like, there's treasure you can find, like, yo, man, outer treasure. Somebody go find Captain Jack, But then there's inner treasure, and inner treasure is the revelation of your own nature in the presence of truth, which then becomes your truth nature, your true nature. Honor the human archetype, honor the advanced humanity. The songs of the advanced civilization will be heard soon. And many pilots and advanced communicators are coming. And we are all advanced communicators, pretty much. I was like, yo man, what are we doing calling people spiritual? It's everything is a nature of communication. It's an intent of expression. That what goes on behind your eyes, it's as if it's a, it's the poetry of an infinite, divine potential. And really that's what I realized, right? I had a conversation with my mother, and she was saying something about how she felt like she had raised me and my brother in a bad way. And I was like, as a human being, you can choose to identify with your past, and that could occupy like the space of your mind, or you can choose to identify with who you will be. But they don't teach this, right? They don't teach about the mind. Pretty much it's so weird. It's like, do you understand? It's like a genius strategy. They're like, yo, this is a multidimensional being, but we're gonna say imagination is not real, and anytime the kid daydreams, the teacher has to go slam the desk as if it's King Kong, on the Empire State Building, So that's what I'm saying. It's as if when you look at ancient, but it's something that can't be hidden, because literally ancient philosophy books are literally saying it, Aristotle saw imagination as, in some sense, something the soul was using. Imagination and reality were like tools of an unknown being, or dimensions being utilized by an unknown being. It's really an unknown being. I mean, what else can we say? I've looked in the mirror, like, no joke, guys. I've looked in the mirror and I've looked into my own eyes. Like, I got really close and I was like, who is that? And I realized it's like literally in front of my eyes, I appear as an objective individual human, but behind my eyes, I'm a biological system, like a skeleton, muscles, skin. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, can you imagine, like, if our eyes had X-ray vision, that would completely make the point of skin, like, it would make skin pointless to some degree. Why skin is, like, not transparent. Man, can you imagine in the future? Imagine, like, okay, let's give it 800 years in the future. Like, there's gonna be genetic engineering or something, and somebody's like, yo, it's like, yo, you can choose any skin color. Which skin color do you want? Imagine this is year 2823, okay? And the person's like, yo, skin color, bro, I want it to be invisible. I want everybody to see the real me. And then imagine at a party, like, there's some guy wearing a suit and his skin is invisible and everybody can see his body, right? And then, like, his parents are like, yo, is that our son? Oh my God, son. It's like, yo, cover your face, son. Imagine the parents of that kid are like, yo, I don't see my son anymore. I just see what, like, surgeons see. Like, but I think it would be the ultimate fashion statement if we had transparent skin. I think that's the epitome of fashion. I think that's it. I think I think genetical engineering will be the finale of the fashion industry. I mean, aside from, like, I don't know, like, advanced suits and, like, I don't know, sometimes I go inside a house, right, and I'm like, yo, just like I put on a scarf, did I just put on a house? Am I dressed in a house right now? Imagine, like, somebody's house was like these giant, like, imagine some like like, you know, architect who was sponsored by like some gene company created a giant skyscraper that was just like these blue jeans. And imagine somebody was like inside the pocket of that building, which was a balcony, and they were like, yo, I'm dressed in a building right now. That's like that statement has three meanings. I'm dressed in a building, as if you have a suit and you're in that building. I'm dressed in the building in the sense like the building's like made of jeans, so it looks like you're inside jeans, so you're. And then the third would be that it's like you're inside a giant jean, you're inside a giant building, and then you're inside your own jeans, you know? So that would be like three ways. I don't know, guys. There was something there. Okay, where else can I go with this? The viewers are like, Mr. Within, end it. For the love of God, end it. Alright. By the way, guys, you know, I have a 40-minute drive after this, so I'm going to go chill in the Discord auditorium. What can I say? You know, there will come a time where it's not going to be really bizarre. Like, imagine an alien lands on Earth and the alien looks at us like, yo, aren't you guys afraid? Aren't you guys startled? We're like, buddy, AI has made like 1,000 versions like crazier than you. You know, imagine like AI has 3D printed like aliens way more crazier than you or something.
They said all they needed was a new logo and some more exposure.
The hell? So anyways, wonder about reality, wonder about the space where where reality is becoming an idea. And you know, at some point, guys, like, there's really nothing to fear. Everybody is headed the same way, okay? What that means is, like, in the outer realms, sure, there could be, like, different kinds of meaning. But what I'm trying to say is that we entered from an unknown state, and we live a known life, and then we enter an unknown state again. So it makes sense to look at life rather than a known entity in a known world that can create depression for itself, or stress or suffering, to treat yourself as an unknown self in an unknown world, and every day is a revelation of from the unknown of your known self, pretty much. So to be honest, it's so bizarre. It's as if it was a known entity trying to make sense of an unknown world, and because it noticed the unknown, the only way you could enter the unknown was to also be unknown. I think that's a genius glow that these, you know, Mr. Within talks the company. O world of worlds, the human species not only stands worthy, but is ready for the great advancement of eons. The golden species, the glowing species, the species that everybody, the history books, you know, thought it's gonna fail, it's too savage, it's too wild, it's cruel, but little did they know that our species was using the idea, the quality of love, humor, and patience, and in some sense observance. These are combining and in some sense creating a potential. Do you understand? That means like there's enough human beings caring for the unknown for our species to be worthy of guarding. And imagine in the future, beyond the atmosphere, we suddenly realize in another dimension the Earth has guard dogs, right? Or these guard beings, okay, which are like these giant, imagine invisible like beasts that are protecting the Earth, in another dimension. Imagine. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was interesting. Share, subscribe, comment, like, join, and there's a question to answer. What kind of person, what kind of human archetype, and what kind of patience would you require to be present in the most advanced human being, advanced human civilization, the most advanced humanity? You don't know, for me, my meditation, sometimes these talks are like a meditation where I just zoom in on where is it all going? What was the point? What was the point of all those times I got rejected in my life? What was the point of all those times I was embraced by life? What was the point of all those times I was happy, I was sad, I was upset, I was hopeless, I was hopeful? What was the point? Where is it going? And then there's a silence. The silence of worlds that know what they're doing. The presence of reality and ultimate orchestration. In the future, even if it's androids, even if it's clones, even if it's extraterrestrials, even if it's interdimensional beings, even if it's technology recreating fictional beings, whatever there may be, the human species is not insecure in the cosmos. It honors itself, it knows its role, it goes about its work, and upon completing the collective tasks on Earth, it will in some sense begin completing the collective tasks in the sky. And so really, the truth about disclosure will be done in the skies of man, not on Earth. That means 600 years when the sky cities arise. So when sky cities arise, extraterrestrial contact, it may happen earlier, who knows, but I think by that time, the inner vision of this moment perceives it as such. And so the moment goes forth, and that human advancement is pretty much all we got, Thanks for listening, guys. Much blessings and namaste. Rise, mankind.